Hey guys, Casey Scanlon here. Going to give you a quick fishing report for Lake of the Ozarks. Water level is 659.0. It's come down just a little bit, and they're running heavy generation, running a lot of water in from Truman Lake and then out of Bagnell Dam. So they're going to be running heavy generation the next several weeks, and the lake level should remain about the same. So we're pretty close to full pool. There's a lot of cover in the water, and still a lot of fish shallow. So the spawn is finishing up. Our last report, there was still a ton of fish spawning, and there's still a few fish doing that, but for the most part, they're wrapping that up. But with all the cover in the water, there's gonna be a lot of these fish remaining shallow. There's a lot of bait shallow. So look for that bite to continue. But as it gets hotter and they start revving up this current generation, a lot of these fish are gonna be swimming out and utilizing a lot of this deeper brush, boat docks, points, bluffs, all these deep water areas where they have access to real close access to deep water. They don't have to swim very far. That's where these fish are going to start setting up, and they'll remain there throughout the summer. But right now, really super fun time to fish. I've fished, had a lot of guide trips the last couple weeks, and we fished from dam to dam, basically, everywhere from the 70, 80 mile marker to the big little Niangua, up the Grand Glaze and down here on the lower end of the lake. And we have several bites going. But one thing that remains the same is that they're biting from one end of the lake to another. Water clarity varies throughout the lake. Down here on the lower end, they've been pulling a lot of water through the lake, so it's actually dirtier than it usually is. And there's a lot of stain to the lake in general with the rain we've had and the influx of water from Truman Lake. So we're going to see, probably some stained water, and that really helps the bite. We've had super clear water all spring, and now the fish are really active. We've got some stained water, which helps them be less wary of the boat, more willing to eat a variety of baits, and kind of a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion. So, the next few weeks should be dynamite. This last 2 weeks have been great. Like I said, the last report, the fish were kind of spawning, and now things are starting to change a little bit. So I'll just go through some of the stuff we've been doing to catch some of these fish. So I've got a pile of baits here in front of me. I'm gonna grab a couple. This right here is the Tackle HD Trick Stick. I think we talked about it a lot. And the last report, same thing, just 5-inch stick worm. This is like a watermelon candy type color. Been throwing green pumpkin, but we've been wacky rigging this, where we actually hook the hook through the middle. Been using a Hayabusa trailer hook, or the Hayabusa special wacky wire guard, which actually has a wire guard on it to kind of keep you out of cover. Been throwing that everything from a spinning rod to 20-pound line and a big 7-foot medium heavy to 7'6" heavy rod, depending on how deep you're throwing it, what size, weight. But this thing will work in a couple inches of water, and it'll work in 20 feet of water. So depending on where or how deep we're fishing, it's going to kind of dictate how we throw it. So up super shallow, skipping behind boat docks, shallow cover, wacky rig's been hard to beat. Also been throwing just a real light Texas rig. That works great around brush and shallow boat docks. It skips pretty good. I've got the weight sliding up and down the line, so no bobber stopper. But that's a really good way to fish that around. And I would say less than 10 feet of water, pitching around logs, boat docks, things like that. That's kind of where I like the Texas rig. When I'm fishing out a little bit deeper, I'll switch it up to a shaky head. Or if I'm using a spinning rod, typically I'll go with the shaky head. You get a little bit more bottom contact with that shaky head. You can kind of feel it a little bit better across the rocks. So I'm using anywhere from 1/8 ounce in shallower water all the way up to, a 1/2 ounce, even 3/4 ounce in real deep water. But, 1/4 ounce is a good middle of the road kind of weight. You can throw it shallow, you can throw it deep. So I'd kind of start from there and then just kind of vary your presentation. If you're having a hard time feeling that bait out a little bit deeper, hard time feeling the bottom, use a heavier weight. If you're getting hung a lot, lighten that weight up, and it's going to keep you free of some of those snags. So great bait, really versatile. Can throw it shallow, can fish it deep, and catch a lot of numbers of fish, catching some big fish as well. Topwater bites been fun. Throwing a variety of topwaters, buzz baits like the Tackle HD Worldwide Buzzer, been really good. Been throwing a walking bait around. There's a lot of big gizzard shad out there right now, and these fish are finishing up to spawn. They're hungry, so they're willing to chase down a pretty big meal. So been throwing some big topwaters like the buzz bait, and this pop bar's been working real good. So that's going to continue through a lot of the summer. These fish are going to like to school around here. We're going to have fish that just remain up shallow. So topwater is one of my favorite baits. This is a great lake to throw it on. They seem to like it here for most of the year, really, and super fun way to catch them. So always got one of those tied on. As these fish get out deeper, I said we've got some stain in the water, which makes these fish more liable to chase down baits like a crankbait or a spinnerbait. This right here is just a deep diving crankbait. So I'll throw this out on points around deeper brush, crash it into those brush piles, try to make bottom contact on the points, the secondary points. You can cover some water with this bait. So throw it around anywhere and everywhere. There's a lot of hungry fish out there, and they're willing to eat this crankbait. And a lot of times I can catch some big ones on it. So as long as they're running some current, that ought to be a good bait. A lot of stain in the river arms. We fished, down around the 60, 70 mile marker in the Nianguas, and there's a lot of stain up there. Even around Hurricane Deck Bridge, there's quite a bit of stain in the water. So you can get away with throwing a lot of these crankbaits. Even the spinner baits have been working. There's a ton of shad up there. The big gizzard shad are up shallow. Seeing them flicking on the surface, chasing each other around in the backs of some of these creeks. So these crankbaits just produce, crankbaits and spinner baits produce really big bites. The shad are gonna start spawning. They're already spawning right now. We've got 70-degree water temps, and that's prime time for these shad to start spawning. They do it in the low light hours. So early in the morning, in the evening is a great time to pick this up, cover some water. The fish are deeper down here on the lower end of the lake. They just traditionally get a little bit deeper, but with all this stain in the water, current, when you're fishing up some of those river arms or anywhere from, I would say, the Hurricane Deck Bridge up, big little Niangua, going way up the Grand Glaze, those fish live up shallow for a good part of the year. So, a lot of times we're fishing 8 foot and less in those areas a lot of the year. And baits like a spinnerbait and crankbait are gonna work from spring all the way to fall. So always something that I have tied on, along with the topwater, a jig, things like that. You're gonna catch a lot of fish. So those shallow water power baits are really working well right now. I mentioned a jig. That's one of my favorite baits for just all around fishing here at the lake. Fish it all year long. And right now you can catch some big stringers of fish on it, and it's super versatile because the fish are really pretty scattered. We've been catching them around, boat docks. We've been catching them in, the shallow shoreline cover, whether that's laydowns, shoreline grass, the pylons behind boat docks, you name it. If it's sticking in the water, those fish are gravitating to it. A lot of times in these shady areas, there's going to be a lot of fry garters. Those fry tend to set up in the shaded docks, bushes, logs, things like that. So look for those areas to produce as well. But the jig is a bait. When these fish are scattered like they are from shallow to deep, it can cover a lot of water. You can pick up that one rod and use it in a variety of situations and do well. So I'm gonna thread up my favorite trailer on here. Usually I bite a little bit off of this trailer, but this is the T-Craw. It's a bait that was previously made by another sponsor of mine, but it's just a great crawdad trailer. Has a lot of movement to it, and it's a really durable bait. So Tackle HD is making that now, and this is my Pro Jig. This is just a 1/2 ounce. And that green and brown color is just really good. here at Lake of the Ozarks. Has a little bit of black in it. And, that's one of my favorites right now. Black and blue is really good because we've got a lot of color in the water right now. But this 1/2 ounce jig will do it all. I can fish it shallow, I can fish it deep, and it's going to produce some bites for me. So always have that tied on as well. And that trailer right there is going to stay on for me all the way till probably November. That's a great trailer once the water gets a little bit warmer, and it produces a lot of bites and a lot of vibration. It's a good trailer on the back of a swim jig as well. Use that in a lot of my FLW tour events, or Major League Fishing Pro Circuit events, where we travel all over. A lot of times we're fishing grass, and that swim jig is my go-to for covering water, and that's a great trailer for it right there. Great all-around trailer. I feel like I get a lot more bites on it than some other trailers because of the action it produces when I'm actually swimming that bait in. I get a ton of bites when I'm swimming it in. So always got the jig tied on. Variety of baits are working. The Carolina rig, all your deeper water baits are really working right now. So it's a great time to kind of dig around in your tackle box, experiment with some new items, and see if you can't get some bites. This bite's going to continue just to get better, in my opinion. We've got fish, still spawning. We've got fish guarding fry, protecting the nest, things like that. We've got fish that just remain and live up shallow all year. And then we've got a lot of fish that have already spawned several weeks ago. They're moving out to the main lake. We've got a lot of current rolling through the lake, so these fish are feeding, and they're gonna stop on. You're gonna have fish in all depth ranges for the next couple weeks, but we got fish moving out deeper every day, and they're going to set up in some of their summertime locations, whether that's on a bluff end, on a point, under a boat dock. Those fish are going to start setting up around heavy cover like brush piles and deep rocks, and it's going to be really fun as long as they're pulling some current. So expect for the next month to be really, really fun. Variety of patterns are going to continue to produce, and the lake has been phenomenal up and down. So have fun out there. I do have a few openings for guide trips, had a couple cancellations. So if you're looking to get out on the water, I'll drop a link in the description to my guide service and all of my sponsors. Be sure to check them out, and all the baits and tackle that we use out there on a daily basis. So appreciate you guys watching, and tune in for the next report. Thanks.